Hello ladies and gentlemen, my name is Mysterious Mr. Ryan and welcome to another house building video. On today's episode I'm going to be showing you a little bit about Paranormal Plaza, which is an interesting futuristic build I've been playing with for a little while now. So apologies, it's been a little while since my last house build. I've been taking a bit of time out to work on some Let's Plays, but hopefully you enjoy this and I really enjoyed making it. So without further ado, let's just jump straight into it. So the first thing we start off with is the garden in the front. Now, I wanted to opt for something a bit different for this one. I've used a lot of fountains in the front of my builds. I wanted to step away from that if I could. So I actually opted to use the plants a little bit more. Now, the first thing I did was actually use the Union Jack, which is the flag for Great Britain. So I put that down in the centre using the red flowers as kind of a border. I then placed down a few hedges to give it a little bit of privacy, an area for the drive, and then a couple of plants to put in the front just to give a nice bit of an entrance. Now I wanted to place down some cobbled brick just as a bit of a floor, but in the end I just found it was easier to paint the whole thing and just clean up the edges rather than trying to worry about doing it all nicely along the edges. So I paint the whole thing red and then work on placing down the blue flowers. So I do these in all the triangles the whole way round. Now anyone who knows the Union Jack will know there is the white part which separates them. I couldn't get that to work quite how I wanted to. The area just wasn't big enough. Everything ended up just looking odd, or I had to make the flag giant. So I opted to use a slightly smaller version. So I placed down the blue in all the corners, and then what I used lights in a moment to actually go around and sort of outline the red to give that separation, but at the same point still end up with the white effect in the middle. So just at the back here I just placed a couple of bits of path down to give a bit of separation from the flag. I didn't want it all to merge into one, so I wanted to give the separation. So here we go, placing down the white lights. Now these are actually the pool lights. These were the best lights I found for the job. The other ones I was looking at, I found some nice ones in the general desk lamps. They just didn't look quite right though. These give the effect of a stud on the floor, and overall I'm really pleased with how these came out. So as you can see to the right hand side, this is the actual driveway. Now the reason for this does seem a bit strange, considering I know what you're thinking, the same thing I was when I was designing the house, is there are no cars in The Sims 4, Ryan. Why are you going to be putting this down? Well, the reason for this will become clear when I actually start working the upstairs, because the building has to be off centre, which is really messing with my OCD, so I had to put something in there. The driveway was the best thing I could sort of think of putting in there. So just as we work on the downstairs, I place down a couple of posts and the general windows. The columns will make more sense a bit later on, but I won't spoil the surprise, unless of course you looked at the thumbnail, in which case you already know what's coming. Just as we work on the back garden area, just fence off the area to stop Sims coming and trespassing on your land and spoiling the party of an evening. So the actual garden, I wanted to give a separation effect without using fences. So I thought by changing the floor style or floor patterns, this would actually create sort of areas of the garden. It's not a very large garden, I will be the first to admit, but I like to think I used the space quite nicely. So you've got two areas, you've got the marble floor and you've got this nice stone floor, and on the stone floor is, you guessed it, a pool. This is my first pool in The Sims 4. It's only a small one. Unfortunately the area didn't really allow me for one that was much bigger, but the point is there is a pool in my game. I placed down a couple of lights, pretty basic design, nothing too fancy, but the point is there's a little pool in the back garden. I placed down a couple of trees just there and now start working on the outside of the building by painting the walls. As we move inside, I just placed a couple of stairs down, fence off an area which will be the bathroom, and now you can see me start working the upstairs floors, and hopefully those columns make a bit more sense. I spent a bit of time working on this in a custom test world. I do this before I record every video. I spent quite a bit of time working on whether those columns were needed, what columns to use, and how they would look. In the end I found it actually looked far weirder without the columns, because the middle floor looked like it was just floating completely unsupported. The top floor wasn't too much of an issue, it was that middle floor just looked wrong. You can see me there place down the roofs, and if you notice I actually destroyed the ceiling in the upper story. That will make a bit more sense when I do the windows in a moment. I spent quite a while actually adjusting the heights and sizes of the roof to fit these windows in, so I wanted to use as big a open space as I could. So the best way I could think of doing that was with floor to ceiling windows. Here you can just see a skylight I'm putting in to make use of that roof space, which will make a bit more sense in one of my screenshots a bit later on. So here I go placing down the full length mirrors and windows. Now these give a really open effect, and I'm really pleased with how these turned out. Without them I think the build would look far different, and I actually wasn't happy with the build unless it had these full windows. But I really like the design, so I think I might use them in future builds as well, because I think it gives a really nice open air feel. just as we worked on the middle floor there, I just separated out the rooms, placed down a few doors, and now it's time to actually start working on the inside textures. So it's red for the upstairs bedroom, pink and blue for the 2 downstairs bedrooms, and then on the ground floor itself I opted for a nice yellow wallpaper. The bathroom I opted for a bit of a green theme throughout, and for the floors I just opted for a nice standard wooden laminate floor. It's nothing too fancy, I was just pleased with how it looked. It was something simplistic, so I wasn't trying to go with anything too fancy in this. I was trying to keep everything simplistic but still maintaining a certain a certain air of futuristic feel, if I can get my words out. Just as we work on the outside lights now and start working the garden, so the first thing I do is place down a grill and change the colour to a silver. I was going to use a red theme, but I actually quite like the way the blue works, so I wanted to stick with this throughout. I placed down a nice bench for someone to sit and a nice table under an umbrella. I placed down a few chairs so you can sit by the pool, and here's the table so you can sit when you've had your barbecue with your friends and have a bit of a chat. The lights just light up a subtle glow at night, so I'm quite pleased with how they looked. Now here's how I cheated. I cheated with a car by taking a kid's toy and blowing it up to a massive proportion. Now I know it's not quite the way you should do it, but I actually really like how it turned out, so I was quite pleased with that. The kitchen, I opted for the same blue-green theme that I've used throughout. It took a bit of planning to get right, and as you can see I do change up quite a large portion of this quite a few times, moving stuff, changing stuff, rearranging. In the end, I'm really pleased with how this looks, but you can see why I make the changes, and hopefully you'll agree that I made the changes a bit later on from that design you can see there to something slightly different, and I hope you agree that was the right choice. As we move into the bathroom is a very small bathroom really. It's only a 3x3 area, so I'm dealing with a very confined space. I placed down a shower, toilet, sink and a mirror, and I wanted to put a bath in there. So originally I put down a corner bath, but I was a bit skeptical about the doorway. I didn't want the bath to block the doors of the Sims from getting in, so in the end I opted for this nice single normal bath and just to have a look and play to see if I can fit a mat inside, but the area is just too small. So here's the actual living space. I wanted to put down a nice TV and sofa, but again, sticking with a future theme, I opted for a futuristic looking TV stand, the biggest flat screen I could find, and a futuristic sofa. The mat was a great design, and I think it looks quite nice actually, contrasting on the floor. It stands out while still being a nice colour. For the table and chairs, I opted for a nice glass table and some futuristic chairs. Again, spent a bit of time looking at the designs before I was quite happy, but as you can see, I'm just going to adjust the kitchen in a moment when I place down some lights, because I wanted to put some lights in that weren't hanging from the ceiling for once. I wanted to do nothing more than just floor lights. So as you can see, I placed one actually in between the fridge and the counter, and I think it actually looks really nice like that. Moving on to the upper story, so we're actually going to work on the 2 bedrooms now. So I opted these as more of a teenager style bedroom, but if you were to just start off with a nice family, get them to move in and you were on a bit of a budget, you could quite easily strip a lot of this stuff back and just use these as simple children's bedrooms until they became teenagers or young adults, and this stuff inside was actually required. That is just something to bear in mind, but when you actually download this later, all the items will actually be in here, so I haven't stripped anything out. It's exactly as you see it at the end of the build. I placed down a couple of desks and computers and a few chairs to sit on as well. I also placed down a couple of mats. They're pretty much a mirror image of one another, bar the ornaments I'm about to place. I actually quite liked how it looked, and I thought the ornaments was just a subtle enough change, it still worked and looked good. So as we can see, I'm going to move on to the landing area now. Now the landing area, I wanted to do something with this space. I just didn't want to just leave it as a dead space, which is the way it was going. So I placed down a sofa, a couple of lamps, and the next thing I do is place down a bookcase. Now this is because there isn't actually a bookcase so far in the house, and I wanted to take some sort of something away from the downstairs. I wanted to give people an excuse to actually come up into the house and actually view these huge panoramic windows. So as we move into the master bedroom, the last thing I'm going to do is place down a bed in the centre, a couple of bedside tables and a bedside set of drawers at the end. I placed down a mirror, a couple of lights and just some decorative ornaments. I wanted to keep this area quite simplistic. I didn't want to clutter it up, so you can see I placed down an ornament and a bookcase. The bookcase is just for a bit of reading in bed, and to be perfectly honest with you, that's sort of where I wanted to leave it. I didn't want to clog the room up with too much clutter, which is quite easy to do in a room of these sizes. I wanted to keep it modern yet simplistic. So I think that's going to pretty much conclude the build for today. So I'm going to leave you with some glamour shots now so you can have a bit of a look around the inside of the build. But if you would like to play with these yourself, you're more than welcome to download it via the gallery on The Sims 4. It's completely unedited, so all the items are in there, but you could quite easily get it into a world, strip a few items back, and you can easily lower the value if you want to work on this with a budget. If you do want to stay up to date with me though, you can follow me on Twitter at Ryan Lurie, links in the description down below. If you want to stay up to date with me, you can hit the like and subscribe button down below. It really means a lot to me if you do, and through the power of technology, every time I upload a video, YouTube will send you a little message. But for now, my name is Mysterious Mr. Ryan. I hope you've enjoyed the Paranormal Plaza, and for now, I'm out. I'll see you later, and take care.